I'll move to question time. Senator Wong.
Seek leave to make a statement concerning ministerial arrangements.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
I thank the Senate and I advise of changes to ministerial arrangements. The Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher, will obviously be absent from question time today on account of commitments relating to the presentation of the 24-25 budget. In the absence of Senator Gallagher, ministers will represent portfolios at question time in accordance with the letter circulated to the President, party leaders and independent senators.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Move to question time. Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Media reporting on the 7th of May revealed that on the 4th of May, a Chinese military jet intercepted and deployed flares in front of an Australian Defence Force helicopter operating from HMAS Hobart in international waters, operating to enforce UN sanctions against North Korea. The ADF helicopter was reported to need to take defensive manoeuvres to avoid the dangerous incident and practice of the Chinese military jet. Minister, on what date did the Albanese government first raise Australia's concerns to the Chinese government regarding the incident that occurred on the 4th of May?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Senator Birmingham for the question. I want to say that the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister and I have been very clear publicly about the unacceptable and unsafe conduct which took place while the Australian Defence Force were contributing to international efforts to enforce UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea. And my recollection is that and I will check this, that the Deputy Prime Minister made public Australia's concerns on the day that we were advised of this incident, but I will check the precise date. I want to make some broader points about what message we have been clear about with the Chinese Foreign Minister and the Chinese government. When I engaged with the Chinese Foreign Minister, Wang Yi, as well as Minister Liu, I have made clear 2 points. One is Australia will continue to operate in international airspace and international waters in accordance with international law. The second point I've made clear is that we will continue to express our concerns about unacceptable conduct. I'd also make this point that unlike Mr Dutton, we are not just talking about this, we are doing it. And in addition to transits and sanctions enforcement, you would be aware, Senator Birmingham, we have recently conducted joint sales with Japan, Philippines and the United States for the first time. I again express publicly our concern at this incident, our care for the safety of Australian personnel who were operating in accordance with UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea. We would continue to urge that all militaries in the region, including the PLA, operate safely.
Answering has expired. Senator Birmingham, first supplementary.
Thanks, Thanks, President. The Prime Minister told media in 6 different press conferences from the 7th of May that Australia had raised the incident, quote, at all levels with the Chinese government, that, quote, we've made the appropriate diplomatic representations and that, quote, we won't be shy about taking the opportunities to raise these issues to make the strongest representations possible. Can the Minister please inform the Senate which ministers have sought or conducted calls with their Chinese ministerial counterparts since the 4th of May incident?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Wong.
I can be clear that the Ambassador has been spoken to by my department. I can be clear to you that we have raised the points I have raised with the Chinese directly. And I would say, and I understand that Senator Birmingham and Mr Dutton, we've seen his transcripts, would like to try and generate some partisanship on this. We all stand in support of the ADF, all of us. And I don't think there's any doubt that that China has heard the message of the Deputy Prime Minister publicly making these statements very soon after advice was received, because they have responded So I'd say to Senator Birmingham, we do continue to deal with these issues consistently and in a mature way, and like all Australians, we support the ADF in these operations as in all operations.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Birmingham, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Have any Albanese government ministers sought a call with their Chinese government ministerial counterpart since the 4th of May? And if not, why not?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Wong.
We have dealt with this matter appropriately, consistently. We have made public. I know that you know part of being in opposition is you set these sorts of tests. We have made public our concerns to the Chinese authorities, including from the second most senior member of the government. So I hardly think the implication that Senator Birmingham is seeking to make is correct. We have made this public, and I will say, certainly for my part, this is something I have raised, as I said, with Foreign Minister Wang Yi and with Minister Liu, and I will continue to raise. It is a matter of principle. It goes to Australia's bipartisan position in relation to international rules and norms. Australian personnel will continue to operate in accordance with international law in international waters and international airspace. And we would look to all militaries in the Indo-Pacific and globally, but certainly in this region, to act in accordance with.
Just a moment, Senator Walsh. I draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the gallery of the Australian Political Exchange Council's 15th delegation from New Zealand. On behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to Australia and in particular to the Senate. Senator Walsh.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. While I know—
Senator Walsh. Senator Whish-Wilson.
Delegation.
Oh, my apologies. Well, wherever you are from, a very warm welcome to the Senate. So, thank you, Senator Whish-Wilson. Well, I've preempted that we are expecting the New Zealand delegation. Gosh, and I even have my glasses on, so my apologies. Thank you. Senator Walsh, start your question again.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. While I know we have to wait until later today for the budget detail, I've heard the Treasurer talk about how tonight's budget will balance the fight against inflation with the need to gear our economy for growth. Can the Minister update the Senate on what we can expect to see in tonight's budget and how it will help achieve the Albanese Labor government's #1 priority, easing cost of living pressures?
Order. 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 Senator Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, I noticed that the opposition interjected just as we were getting to cost of living being the #1 priority. It says something about their priorities, doesn't it? It says something about their priorities. And what I would say to senators is that this government, the Albanese Labor government, will deliver a budget that is responsible, that is affordable and that is suited to the times, just like our first two budgets. And this will be a budget for every Australian, from a government working for all Australians. A budget about the two things that have driven our government for the last 2 years, cost of living relief and a future made in Australia. President, we know Australians are feeling under pressure. So this budget will deliver an historic cost of living relief package without adding to inflation, because cost of living relief is our priority and the first priority of this budget. Our budget is designed to deliver to every Australian, for every Australian, a tax cut for every taxpayer, stronger Medicare in every community, funding 29 more Medicare urgent care clinics, taking the total to 87 across the country, all while boosting bulk billing and making medicines cheaper. This budget will deliver more homes in every part of this country, and this budget will deliver a better deal for working parents. We are investing in a future made in Australia for every Australian, attracting more investment in homegrown industry so we can make more things here, opening the doors of opportunity by making university and TAFE more accessible and more affordable, including wiping $3 billion in debt and PRAC placements to help both those goals. Now, the contrast, of course, between this budget and the mismanagement of those opposite couldn't be more stark, and all we need to look back to is the budget from 10 years ago, Mr Dutton's 2014
Minister. The time
budget.
for answering has expired. Senator Walsh, first supplementary.
Thank you. Since the 2022 election, we've seen the results of the Albanese Labor government's efforts to drive down inflation to take the pressure off household budgets. Can the minister update the Senate on the impact of the government's policies and how tonight's budget will further help?
Thank you, Senator Walsh. Minister Wong.
Thank you to Senator Walsh. Well, we know that Australians are doing it tough, and that is why helping Australians with the cost of living is our #1 priority in tonight's budget. Inflation still is the big near-term challenge in our economy, and I would remind those opposite that under this government, annual inflation is now less than half its peak and much lower than the 6.1% that we inherited at the time of the election. So remember that whenever they talk to us about inflation, 6.1%. Is what we inherited at the time of the election. Real wages are growing. We have record numbers of new jobs, expanding business investment and the lowest gender pay gap on measure. The measures that we put in place took 0.5% off inflation in the year to the March quarter in 2024, many of the measures that those opposite oppose.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Walsh, second supplementary.
Thank you. Well, I'm pleased to hear that the Albanese Labor government will tonight deliver a budget that is responsible and suited to the times. Can the minister provide further detail about how tonight's budget will demonstrate Labor's record of responsible economic management?
Minister Wong.
Responsibly managing the budget means the Albanese Labor government can deliver tax cuts for every taxpayer, stronger Medicare in every community, more homes across the country and a better deal for working parents, and investment in a future made in Australia. And let's remember the effect of the measures that were opposed by those opposite was they took 0.5 percentage point off inflation in the year to the March quarter in 2024. In that time, childcare prices fell 5.6%. Without our policy, it would have jumped 15%. Electricity prices by 2%. Without the government's energy plan, the rise would have been about 15%. All of these measures were cost of living relief, which those opposite tried to block. This budget will deliver for Australians, it will deliver for the future of the country, and it will stand in stark contrast to the sort of approach that we saw from Mr Dutton and his colleagues 10 years ago, where we saw cuts to health, cuts to education,
Thank you, Minister.
cuts
the
to
time
Medicare
for
and to the
has
ABC.
Expired. I'll now draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the gallery of the real Australian Political Exchange Council's 15th delegation from New Zealand, and apologise because I did acknowledge you when you weren't here. Even though I met with you yesterday, I should have known who you were, so my apologies. But on behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to Australia and in particular to the Senate. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Senator Watt. The National Farmers Federation has warned the government's shutdown of live sheep exports legitimises extreme animal activism at the expense of farmers and their families, demonstrating that no agricultural industry is truly safe from ideology-driven policies if it means scoring political points. Given the live sheep trade has increased by more than 40% since 2021-22, who in the WA farming community did you consult with about the timing of your announcement? And will you now, Minister, concede that your government's decision to ban the trade is simply the ideological agenda of animal activists?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Mackenzie, for giving me an opportunity to talk about the facts regarding the Albanese government's policy to phase out live sheep exports and to phase in more value-adding of Australian livestock products. What we're about in this country, in this government, is actually about more value-adding. is about delivering more jobs in agriculture, in manufacturing and in every other industry. Unfortunately, the National Party is yet to come to that point that they actually support creating jobs onshore in Australia through more value adding. Now, there's a number of sub-questions in what Senator Mackenzie had to ask, was asking.
Order. Minister Watt, please continue.
I mean, there's so many things apparently this is about. What this is about is delivering an election commitment. What this is about is delivering an election commitment that we took to the last 2 elections to phase out a trade that collapsed under National Party leadership of the agriculture portfolio. That's what happened with this trade. Now, we know that Senator Mackenzie, Mr Littleproud and all the Nats are working themselves up about this policy. What they haven't told the farmers of Western Australia is over the decade the Liberals and Nationals were in government, live sheep exports by sea decreased by 1.5 million head, amounting to $144 million. So if you want to talk about getting rid of the trade of live exports of sheep, maybe have a look at your own record where you reduced the exports of live sheep by 1.5 million over your decade in office, valued at $144 million.
Please resume your seat. Order. Order. I'm waiting. Senator Mackenzie's on her feet. Senator Mackenzie.
Point of order on relevance, Madam President. I actually asked who in the WA farming community did the minister consult with when he decided to shut this trade down.
You did indeed, Senator Mackenzie, and there was also an introductory paragraph that went to a whole range of matters, and the minister is being directly relevant. Please continue, Minister.
I'm happy to specifically answer that point from Senator Mackenzie. I have personally met with representative groups for sheep farmers and sheep farmers themselves on at least a dozen occasions over the 2 years that I've held this role. I've met them in Perth, I've met them in Canberra, and we appointed an independent panel who spent several months going and meeting with these people face to face. But of course, we're not alone in wanting to see live sheep exports phased out, because it was only in 2018 that Senator Henderson, as the then member for Corangamite, said that the sensible path for both sides of the debate is to construct a carefully considered transition to ending the trade permanently. We know there are Liberals who support this. The time for answering
has expired. Order. Order. Senator Mackenzie, first supplementary.
Thank you. The Animal Justice Party posted the following statement on their website following your announcement, Minister, and I quote, "We're proud that the Animal Justice Party could deliver the knockout blow by demanding the end of the live sheep export as a requirement for our preferences at the Dunkley by-election in March. Ongoing conversations behind the scenes between the Animal Justice Party and Labor leadership has helped fine-tune government policy. Minister, why did you sell out sheep farmers from WA for preferences in the East Coast Melbourne?"
Senator Mackenzie. Minister Watt.
For starters, we're not selling out the sheep industry in Western Australia or anywhere else. We're actually investing $107 million to provide more value-adding and more inshore processing and more exports and more domestic sales of lamb.
Order.
Now, I've seen this argument pushed out.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Mackenzie, you've asked your question. You've been extremely vocal. I'm asking you to listen in silence. Minister, please continue.
Now, I've seen this argument pushed out over the last 24 hours by the National Party and some of their supporters in the agriculture sector that apparently the Labor Party did a deal with the Animal Justice Party for a by-election in 2024 to deliver a commitment that we first announced back in 2019. So we announced the commitment in 2019, we re-announced it in 2022, we've said all along we're going to deliver it, but apparently it was a preference deal that we did in 2024, according to the National Party, that was the killer blow, that was the influence. It is nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. It is another lie being peddled by the National Party to prop up a trade that has been declining.
Minister Watt, I'm going to ask you to withdraw that.
OK, I'll withdraw that.
You.
It is another misrepresentation by the National Party to prop up a trade that has been in decline for 20 years, particularly while they were in office.
Minister, the time has expired. Senator Mackenzie, second supplementary.
At a time when Labor shamelessly refuses to settle the live export class action from its unlawful ban back in 2011, and the Animal Justice Party has boasted that their next political win will be to end live cattle exports, will the minister today unequivocally rule out a ban on Australian live cattle export industry?
Go back to Beef Week.
Senator Davey, order. Minister Watt.
Actually went to Beef Week, Senator Davey. I don't think you were there. I don't think you were there. In answer to Senator Birmingham's question, yes, I have categorically and repeatedly ruled out phasing out or banning live cattle exports from this country, as has the Prime Minister. Our policy has only ever been in relation to live sheep exports, and that is the way it remains. Now, Senator McKenzie raises the issue of the outstanding class action around live cattle exports, and that is something that I've said many times that I'd like to see resolved. What Senator McKenzie and her National Party colleagues won't tell you is that their government ran that case to trial over several years and never put up a single dollar to settle that case. In contrast, the Albanese government has already offered over $200 million to settle that case, a significant amount of taxpayers' money, much more than the National Party or the Liberal Party ever did.
Order.
The National Party
Order.
are hypocrites. They want to pretend they're supporting farmers while they ran down the live sheep export trade and while they ran the live cattle export decision all the way to court over year after year after year.
Order. Senator McKenzie, you are being extremely disruptive and disorderly. Order. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Women today, who I believe is Senator Wong. At least 28 women have been killed by violence this year, almost twice as many as at this time last year. Men's violence against women is a national emergency, but Labor refuses to provide an emergency response. The women's safety sector has repeatedly called for $1 billion each year for frontline services, so that no one who seeks help has to be turned away back to violence. You said you'd be a government for women. So will the Albanese government finally recognise men's violence against women as a national emergency and commit $1 billion per year for frontline services in tonight's budget?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Waters. Well, I think all of us in this chamber understand that family and domestic violence destroys lives. All of us in this chamber understand that violence against women is a national crisis. And I would hope all of us in this chamber, rather than partisanship, would be working towards how we diminish and end this scourge which has blighted the lives of so many people for so many decades. I think you know that the government has been working with the states and territories to end violence in a generation, and we are accelerating efforts to meet that goal. I would hope that you would know that prevention of violence against women has been a priority of this government since we took office. But we do know there's so much more to do. We need to focus on prevention and we need to focus on perpetrators, and this important work will take time, determination and a relentless focus on preventing violence and helping survivors. And we need to, and none of us can rest until we see a cessation of the violence, which is such a crisis for so many people in this country. So to date, the government has invested in record levels to support the national plan. We've also expanded the single parenting payment. We've invested in housing to help women and children leaving violence. We've acted to make the family law system safer for women and children. We've made major changes to the Sex Discrimination Act to prevent sexual harassment. We've taken long overdue action against sexual assault on campus. We've commenced the ALRC review to strengthen justice responses to sexual violence. We've made new commitments, a new permanent leaving violence payment of $925 million, $1 billion.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Well, on that last point, the National Cabinet's announcement simply extended the Morrison-era escaping violence payment that has been plagued with maladministration and delays. It will help women reach out to support services, but it will only increase demand on those already stretched services. When will the government properly resource frontline services to meet this increased demand?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, first I'll deal with the Leaving Violence program, which replaces the current trials. I mean, I would have thought that victim survivors having the certainty of knowing a safety net will be there if they need it. Is a positive step. I would also note that the payment will be indexed annually to ensure it maintains its value and complements other financial supports. It builds on the improvement we made to to the escaping violence payment since we came to government. I would also make the point that there is a national plan which has been developed in partnership with victim survivors, which has been driven. This has driven our more than $3 billion investment to respond to the needs of women and children experiencing violence, but also supporting the critically important work of preventing violence, intervening before it escalates, and recovery of victim survivors. We boosted funding to frontline services, which included restoring the funding which was due to cease under the Foreman government in June of last year.
Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. On the weekend, Labor re-announced the $1 billion that the Greens secured in HAF negotiations that had already been announced in my EFO, and pretended that it was new money for crisis accommodation for women and children escaping violence. Retargeting existing money is not new money. When will you stop recycling Morrison-era payments and previous budget commitments and actually commit new money to frontline services and prevention programs?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, I think, as I said at the outset, I would hope that all of us, rather than trying to take a partisan approach to this, might try and work together on this issue, Senator Waters. You would be aware that we are delivering more safe places for women and children experiencing family and domestic violence, which will assist more than 2,800 women and children each year. An additional 720 new places will be available under the next round. There is no quick fix to this.
Senator Waters, you've asked your question.
We have provided substantial amounts of additional funding under the national plan, but there is no quick fix to this. This is something all of us need to work together on, men and women, because what we see is a crisis. It's a crisis that all of us need to respond to.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon.
My question is for the Minister, representing the Minister for Education, Senator Watt. The Albanese government has stated tonight's budget is about providing cost of living relief without adding to inflation. When speaking with young people, I'm constantly told that debts they acquire while studying are adding to cost of living pressures. What is the Albanese government doing to make the HECS help system fairer and support more Australians to access affordable higher education?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Sheldon, for your question. We know that there are people doing it tough right now across Australia, and that's why helping Australians with cost of living pressures is the Albanese government's #1 priority. We're driving down inflation to take pressure off household budgets. We want people to earn more and keep more of what they earn, but we do know that there's still more to be done. Labor's economic plan provides relief where it's needed without adding to inflation. And a particular focus of our plan is helping younger Australians. In last year's budget, we increased rent assistance, we've poured billions of extra dollars into building more homes, and young people's wages are now growing above inflation. From the 1st of July this year, we're delivering tax cuts for every taxpayer, rewarding hard work and putting more money back in Australians' pockets. And under Labor, younger Australians will get a tax cut which they wouldn't have received under the Liberals and Nationals. As part of tonight's budget, the Albanese government has cut the student debt of more than 3 million Australians in this month's budget, wiping around $3 billion in student debt. We will cap the HECS help indexation rate at the lower of the Consumer Price Index or the Wage Price Index, and not only that, we're backdating these changes to wipe the effects of the spike in the HECS help indexation rate in 2023. And I am surprised to hear at least 2 frontbenchers from the coalition criticising this decision of the Albanese government to wipe $3 billion worth of student debt. We know now who's for more student debt, and that's the people who are interrupting right now. This change from the Albanese government will ensure that indexation will never grow faster than the average wage. Australians with an average HECS help debt of $26,500 will receive a credit of around $1,200. The new Commonwealth Prac payment will also be available to eligible domestic students studying nursing, midwifery, teaching and social work at universities, and those studying nursing qualifications through eligible vocational education providers.
The time has expired. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
The Universities Accord report was released earlier this year. What did it say about cost of living pressures facing students? And why is the Albanese government making these changes now?
Minister Watt.
Thanks again, Senator Sheldon. The Universities Accord final report, which was released in February this year, included 47 recommendations to reform the higher education sector for the next decade and beyond. Students and unions highlighted the very real concerns about placement poverty and cost of living pressures. The big hike in HECS help debt last year hit a lot of Australians hard, in particular a lot of younger Australians. We've heard the message and we're acting. We want younger Australians to reach their potential, earn a good wage and have fulfilling careers. We also want to help fix the skills shortage that festered under those opposite to make sure that Australia has the skills and services we need to thrive. That's why the Albanese government will provide relief for students while protecting the integrity and value of the HECS help system and establishing a Commonwealth prac payment. We need more nurses, more midwives, more teachers, more early childhood educators, more social workers, and the Albanese Labor government will help deliver them.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
HELP and the previous higher education contribution scheme is designed to reduce upfront barriers to education. This life-changing support has made it possible for millions of Australians to get a university degree. How will these changes benefit Australian students, and how will students be able to access these important cost of living measures?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. The Albanese government is providing much-needed cost of living relief for younger Australians by cutting $3 billion in student debt for more than 3 million Australians in this month's budget. We're introducing legislation to cap the HECS help indexation rate to be the lower of either the Consumer Price Index or the Wage Price Index, and that will be backdated from the 1st of June 2023. I guess we might get to see whether this will be another cost of living measure that the Albanese Labor government's putting forward that the opposition votes against. This means that indexation will be reduced from 7.1% to 3.2% in 2023 and from 4.7% to 4% in 2024. Australians with an average HECS help debt of $26,500 will receive a credit of around $1,200, and those who have recently paid off their student loans may be eligible for a cash refund. The Albanese government is serious about assisting younger Australians with cost of living pressures, and these measures will help do that.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator David Pocock.
To the Minister representing the Minister for Housing, Senator Farrell. Minister, the government has said that housing will be one of the centrepieces of the budget. With regards to the government's claim to be doubling homelessness funding as part of the new $9.3 billion 5-year National Agreement on Social Housing and Homelessness, how much of that money is new money? And how much is simply being transferred from social housing funding to homelessness?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Farrell.
And thank Senator Pocock for his question. Well, of course, what we'll see in the budget tonight, of course, is what we're all waiting to see. So I think your question is asking me to anticipate the Treasurer's comments.
Senator Pocock.
President, I don't know if this is relevant, but this is a pre-budget
just a moment,
announcement.
Senator Pocock, just resume your seat. I have a senator on his feet for a point of order. I expect there to be silence so I can hear the point. Senator Pocock.
President, I'm not sure if this is relevant, but this is a bizarre situation where the government makes all these pre-budget announcements, and then when asked about them, they say we can't foreshadow what's in the budget, even though they've told us what's in the budget.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. You could have simply asked me about relevance and not made a statement. The minister is being relevant. Please continue, Senator Farrell.
President, but look, I will. I don't want to, foreshadow what the Treasurer is going to say in what will be another wonderful Albanese government budget. But can I say this, that of course the Albanese government does believe that everyone deserves a safe and secure place to call home. And after a decade, well, Senator Mackenzie, after a decade of no action under the former coalition government, the latest data from the ABS shows that the number of people experiencing homelessness has climbed by 6,000 people between 2016 and 2021. And of course, it is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that almost 123,000 Australians were reported as experiencing homelessness in the most recent data. Now, of course, your question related particularly, I think, to the ACT, and of course the ACT will share in the new $9.3 billion national agreement on social housing and homelessness, incorporating a $423 million increase on the previous agreement.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister. How much of the $1 billion for transitional accommodation for women and children fleeing domestic violence and youth, which we know is not new money, I'm interested how much will be spent on building new social and affordable homes, and how many new homes will be built nationally and here in the ACT? I understand you may have to take the second bit on notice, but please don't apply the PMO's playbook to that one, if that's all right.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Senator Farrell. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Pocock for his first supplementary question. It's unclear to me, a little bit unclear to me from your question as to whether you're talking specifically about the ACT or the issue generally, but let me talk about the issue generally and then try and bring it back to the ACT. We are targeting $1 billion of the National Housing Infrastructure Facility to support crisis and transitional accommodation for women and children fleeing domestic. Do you want to hear the answer to the question, Senator Mackenzie?
I'm doing such a good job.
Minister Farrell,
look, Senator Pocock.
Minister Farrell, direct your comments to me, but order. Senator Mackenzie, you are being particularly disorderly this question time, so I would ask you to listen in respectful silence. Minister Farrell.
So the government is targeting $1 billion of the National Housing Infrastructure Facility to support crisis and transitional accommodation for women.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
Thank you, President.
Order.
Thank you, Minister. Given that domestic and family violence is one of the main drivers of homelessness in Australia, why has the government so far failed to renew funding for peak homelessness advocacy bodies, National Shelter and Homelessness Australia, as well as frontline service providers, increase the rate of safety net payments?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Pocock for his second supplementary question. I think when the budget is released in its totality today, you will see, Senator Pocock, that this government is seriously dealing with the issue of the housing shortage and homelessness in this country in a way that previous governments have not been able to do. We've got a commitment to resolving the homeless issue and the housing issue, and this budget, it'll obviously be a very responsible budget, but it'll be a budget that produces a surplus, but it is a budget that will directly address the sorts of issues that you are concerned about in this.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Van.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Trade, Minister Farrell. Given that the role of Export Finance Australia is to support Australian exports, can the Minister inform the Senate of how many loans the EFA has provided to the Australian defence manufacturers and exporters?
Thank you, Senator Van. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Van for his question. I don't specifically have those details with me today, Senator, but I will, as soon as we leave the chamber, I'll get those figures for you and provide them to you as quickly as I can. This government, of course, has had a key focus on the trade issue and trying to expand our trade, both restore the trade that we had with China and to diversify or encourage the diversification of trade with other countries. And of course, the program that you're talking about, the Export Grants Program, is very much a feature of trying to assist Australian companies in that expansion program. We've seen, of course, we'll see it tonight from the budget, just how important trade plays, how much importance trade plays in ensuring that we deliver a surplus in this budget. This is a government that supports trade. We're a trading nation. We believe we can do more than we're doing at the moment, and of course we'll be using programs like the one that you've mentioned to ensure that Australian companies get the best possible support that they can from Austrade, from these grants, to ensure that we continue to build on our strong performance in the trade portfolio.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Van, first supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, I was referring specifically to defence manufacturers and exporters, so I assume you'll need to take this on notice as well. But can you tell the Senate how many of those loans were provided on the commercial account that EFA runs?
Thank you, Senator Van. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Van for his first supplementary question. Well, as you've said, I will ensure that I can provide that information to you as quickly as I can. The opportunities for providing assistance to companies exporting defence facilities will be an important part of this government's future trade proposals. Of course, with the AUKUS development, then there are opportunities for many Australian companies to seek to export their technology overseas. One of the features, I think, of the most recent changes in the United States policies as regards to the supply of...
thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Van, second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. It seems that the opportunities to import into Australia for foreign-owned companies seems to be greater than for Australian companies to export. Given that the government has provided $3 billion for EFA to use for loans that are in the national interest, again, I assume you'll take this on notice, can you tell the Senate how many loans and to what value have been provided by EFA on the national interest account?
Thank you, Senator Van. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Van for his second supplementary question. Look, again, I don't have those figures on the off the top of my head, but can I say this, that all of the decisions that EFA makes when they make consideration of where to invest Australian finances, of course, is made in the national interest. And of course, there's been some very recent announcement. One that I was directly involved in was the Arafura mines, just north of the town of Alice Springs. A wonderful opportunity for us to value add on the critical minerals that we're going to use to decarbonise our country and assist with the decarbonisation with other countries. No, It's the way to do it, Senator
Thank
Mackenzie.
you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Communications. Watching free sport on our TV is part of the Australian way of life. Whether it's the footy, the cricket or watching the Matildas in action, sport brings us together as a community, whether you're rich or poor. The government's new communications bill will stop this for Australians who watch free-to-air TV over the internet. An increasing number as fewer and fewer aerials are sold. No more free sport for them. As we struggle to get our kids off social media and outside into the fresh air, we should be doing everything we can to give them sporting idols to look up to in their lives. Will the Minister please explain why this government won't ensure the anti-siphoning rules truly protect the right of all Australians to watch free sport no matter how they access their television services?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Lambie, for the question. I'm sure, like you, I very much enjoy watching sport on free-to-air, and I know many Australians do as well. Of course, some of us choose to go for Queensland teams, but others make the wrong decision to go for another state. You can't help everyone. But the issue that Senator Lambie does raise is obviously an important one. We have seen a very big move towards pay TV to be able to watch some of the leading sporting events in our country. And that is something that is of great concern to the Albanese government, and I know that Minister Rowland, as the Communications Minister, has been working on this for quite some time. Under Minister Rowland's leadership, the government has reviewed the anti-siphoning scheme and anti-siphoning list and is in the process of amending both to recognise the contemporary media environment. So I guess as a position statement from the government, we are absolutely committed to maintaining free access to events of national significance, including sporting events. And the anti-siphoning scheme is a key mechanism for achieving this. We did commit to review the scheme in the context of the 2022 federal election to ensure that it remains fit for purpose in a contemporary media environment. And although there was broad support for the objective of free access to important sporting events, submissions to the review highlighted differing views on key issues. There's been a particular issue, I know, regarding the telecasting of women's sport, growing in popularity in a massive way, the Matildas, our netball teams, a range of other sports as well. And recognition of women's sport has made huge progress in recent years, and I know that Minister Rowland is particularly interested in ensuring greater parity for the broadcast of women's sporting competitions and events. The bill currently before Parliament is a significant expansion of the scheme, and it does address a gap under the current scheme through which Netflix, Amazon and other online...
Senator Lambie, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Recent data shows that just 61% of Australian free-to-air TV viewers watch it through an aerial, and that number is going down. Recent data also suggests that watching sport and having a common passion is a great way to enhance social cohesion, something that seems to be lacking in this country. As more and more high and medium density housing is built, fewer aerials and ground stations are going up. Why is the government ignoring these figures and leaving those Australians behind to watch sport only via paid streaming services?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Watt.
Thanks again, Minister Lambie. And as I say, Minister Rowland and the government as a whole, sorry, Senator Lambie, you're obsessed with deals. Just get a grip. Senator Lambie, as I say, Minister Rowland, this is an issue that she's taken very seriously, and I share, and I know Minister Rowland shares and the government as a whole shares your concern that Australians should have free access to major sporting events that are of national significance. You're right, Senator Lambie, they are things that bring us together as families, as communities, and we do want to make sure that you don't have to pay to see every event of that kind. And that's why the bill that's before the Parliament is an improvement to the system. It's about stopping some of the online broadcasters from acquiring exclusive rights to events without a free-to-air broadcaster having any rights, and that will enhance the ability of free-to-air television broadcasters to acquire rights to iconic events.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Lambie, second supplementary.
Thank you. The government's new rules will make it easy to find news, free sport and Aussie shows on new smart TVs, but but Australians. This will only help people who have enough money to get a new TV. Due to the cost of living crisis, just 1 in 10 households changed their TV in the last 6 months. Why won't this government let the millions of Australians who can't afford to get a new TV watch free-to-air sport?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Lambie. Well, I guess I don't agree that that the way the government is approaching this will result in that outcome. And as I've said a couple of times now, we absolutely share your desire for the average Australian to be able to watch sporting events of national significance on free-to-air TV. It's not something that should be discriminated against on the basis of your wealth. We understand there is a role for pay TV in the media environment, but there are certain events that should be preserved for free-to-air TV. So, as I say, the bill that's before the parliament is designed to address a gap under the current scheme through which Netflix, Amazon and other online entities could acquire exclusive rights to events without a free-to-air broadcaster having any rights. And that change will enhance the ability of free-to-air television broadcasters to acquire the rights to iconic events, noting that where free-to-air broadcasters acquire the television rights to such events, they typically also acquire the rights for their own streaming services.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Industry and Science, Senator Farrell. I refer to the Albanese Labor government's recent announcements about our plan to rebuild Australia's manufacturing capability and ensure a future made in Australia. Can the Minister advise how the Albanese government is working to deliver a future made in Australia and create more well-paid, secure jobs across the country, including in my home state of Queensland?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Green, for her question. And the Albanese Labor government is preparing for the opportunities of the future and wants to ensure that all Australians benefit. Too many times we've seen Australian know-how and Australian resources used to create jobs and opportunities for other countries. We need to help industries grow and create the conditions that they need to thrive locally. Just a few weeks ago, the government made a major investment in technology in Queensland. Around the world, Australians are leading the charge on quantum technologies, and this government is committed to ensuring the future of quantum happens here in Australia. That's why the Albanese government is investing $470 million in PsiQuantum to ensure their next phase of growth happens right here in Australia. This will create 400 jobs, Madam President, new jobs in Brisbane directly at PsiQuantum, and countless more as our quantum ecosystem evolves and grows. We are building manufacturing.
Order.
Well, I'm doing that exactly, Senator Birmingham. We're also building manufacturing opportunities for the future, helping Australia achieve its potential as a renewable energy superpower. Last month, also in Queensland, that very fine Minister Hussack, attended the launch of the new Fortescue Hydrogen Electrolyser Advanced Facility. The facility, yes, an advanced facility. The facility will produce green hydrogen electrolysers at an industrial scale. This project is strengthening the nation's manufacturing capability and creating new well-paid jobs.
Senator Green, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. I do have another question. Thank you, Minister. Can the Minister please inform the Senate how the Albanese Labor government is backing local businesses to be more competitive in new and emerging industries and ensuring that Australia's industrial, technological and scientific strengths will benefit all Australians through our plan for a future made in Australia?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thanks Senator Green for her first supplementary question. Science and technology will be central to unlocking the next generation of opportunities for young Australians like these people up here. In my own state of South Australia, earlier this month, we saw the first commercial civil space rocket launched from an Australian soil facilitated by local company Southern Launch, and it was a great success. This is the first time that a hybrid rocket has been powered by paraffin wax, and more environmentally friendly alternative to the traditional rocket fuel. It's a great example of an Australian industry competing globally and creating jobs locally. The CEO of the Kaniba Community Aboriginal Corporation, Corey McLennan, said, "Every time we do a launch, there's somewhere up to 25 jobs in our local community."
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, why is it important that we rebuild Australian manufacturing and create more manufacturing jobs? And what has been the Liberal and Nationals' response to reforms designed to actually help manufacturers?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Farrell, order.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Green for her second supplementary question. After 10 years of neglect and negativity towards Australian manufacturing, 12. The Albanese government is cleaning up the mess left by the coalition. We're getting to work creating secure manufacturing jobs. This is a stark contrast to the approach of those opposite. Those opposite are all negativity, zero plan. At every opportunity, they are opposing what will grow manufacturing in this country into the future, and they opposed energy price release. They opposed the National Reconstruction Fund. Their instinct was always to oppose tax cuts for manufacturing workers. This government proudly supports Australian businesses to grow and to thrive, and that's why we're getting on with the job of growing Australian manufacturing.
Thank you, Minister Farrell. Senator Scarr.
My question is to the Leader of the Government in the Senate, Senator Wong. Minister, the following are your words from 2021 directed at the Coalition Government. "A serious crime was covered up. It's a cover-up. The cover-up is unreal." In an estimates hearing that year, Senator Gallagher stated, "It is a cover-up of the cover-up of the cover-up. It's like a triple cover-up," which you followed with, "You, the government, should be ashamed of yourselves." In a relevant recent federal court judgment, Justice Lee found, when examined properly and without partiality, the cover-up allegation was objectively short on facts, but long on speculation and internal inconsistencies. He further stated that the publication of the cover-up component caused, quote, "confusion and did much collateral damage, including to the fair and orderly progress of the underlying allegation of sexual assault through the criminal justice system." Do you now accept that no cover-up occurred and the politicisation of this matter caused much collateral damage?
Senator Scarr, I will advise you that statements made by senators before they were a minister are not relevant to their role as minister. I will invite Senator Wong to answer your question, but with the caveat that I've just explained. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I am surprised at that question. There were quite a number of findings made by the judge, and can I indicate my personal sympathy for Ms Higgins, who the judge found was raped in the minister's office. Other than that, I think there has been much said in many contexts about this, and unlike some on that side, I think, unlike some on...
Senator Canavan, I expect... Senator Canavan, I'm calling for order. Minister, please continue.
Unlike some on that side, I think this is a matter which it would be best if we moved on from, in the spirit, and I in the spirit.
This is unbelievable.
I remind those opposite of the public.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order, particularly on my left. Order. Senator Ayres. Minister, please continue.
Higgins made a public statement about healing. I thought it was...
Order.
You've just entered...
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order. I would ask all senators in this place to listen in respectful silence. Minister Wong, please continue.
Ms Higgins made a public statement about healing. This is a woman who a court has found to have been. This is a woman who a court has found to have been raped in the office of a minister. I would have thought she deserves a little bit more respect.
Order. Order. Senator Scarr, resume your seat, please. I would expect all senators in this place to listen with respectful silence. If you want to make a contribution, make it at some other time, not by being disorderly and disrespectful in this chamber during question time. Senator Scarr.
Madam President, in 2021 you stated about my friend and colleague Senator Reynolds did not lead by example and she let a woman down badly, a woman to whom she had a duty of care. So, Madam Deputy President, I ask this: what are the consequences for Minister Reynolds? I ask you, Minister, what should be the consequences for your inaccurate accusations and politicisation of this matter?
Once again, Senator Scarr, I remind you that this question is not in order. It was made while the member was in opposition, so that caveat applies. I'm going to ask Minister Wong if she wishes to make a contribution, and I'm asking all senators to listen in respectful silence. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, again, I'm surprised that those opposite wish to continue with this, and I refer to my first answer.
Senator Scarr, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Justice Lee added, "It is the only alleged cover-up of which I am aware, where those said to be responsible for the covering up were almost insisting the complainant go to the police." Minister, will you reflect and apologise for your role in promoting the false narrative of a cover-up?
Senator Scarr, once again, before I call Minister Wong, that question is not in order. It is referring to comments allegedly made at a previous time when people on the government side were not ministers. So I invite Minister Wong to make a contribution if she wishes. Minister.
Serious allegations were made. Appropriate questions were asked in relation to those serious allegations, and Justice Lee has made findings which confirm the seriousness of the allegations.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Women, Senator Wong. The Prime Minister, the Treasurer and the Finance Minister, who is helpfully also the Minister for Women, have told us that this budget will have a focus on addressing cost of living. We have also heard the Minister for Women tell us many times that women's economic equality is a core economic imperative and central focus of the Albanese Labor government. Ahead of tonight's budget, can the Minister tell us how the Albanese government has so far supported women's economic security and helped them manage cost of living?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Stewart for her question. And we are fortunate on this side to have so many women who are gracing the Labor ranks and, in fact, in this chamber. And we are also fortunate to have the Minister for Women and the Minister for Finance, Senator Katy Gallagher, who has made clear the importance of assuring women's economic security. And that is what our government has been doing, working to ensure women have economic security through both our policies and our investments. And our tax cuts will provide greater relief to low and middle income taxpayers who are disproportionately women. From the 1st of July, women will receive, and the senator opposite might like to know that the women who perhaps voted for her, will receive bigger tax cuts under the tax cuts we proposed. Women will receive an average tax cut of $1,649, nearly $400 more than they would have received under those opposite. And Treasury modelling suggests Labor's tax cuts will also boost participation, which is an important thing for women across this country and the economy. They don't like that either. We are investing $4.7 billion to make childcare cheaper and more accessible. Again, you don't like that. But what it does is it gives more families more choice about how they balance work and care. And we are investing $1.9 billion over 5 years to expand the eligibility for the parenting payment.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order. Senator Hughes, I have called you at least on 4 occasions, and you kept being disorderly. That is incredibly disrespectful to the President. When I call you to order, that is exactly what I expect you to do, to come to order and to cease interjecting. Minister, did you wish to continue?
Continue, and I would hope Senator Hughes would be happy at the improved economic position of women as a consequence of the government's policies. I would hope that she would think it is a good thing to increase paid parental leave. I would hope she thinks it is a good thing to make paid parental leave flexible and accessible. I would hope it is a good thing also that all of us would support the government's work to tackle gender-based violence. The strategy for gender equality, which was set out last year,
Thank you, Minister.
had this as one of the key priorities.
Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister. We know that there is not one simple solution that will deliver women's economic equality. While the gender pay gap in Australia is at its lowest since recording began at 12%, there is a persistent gender pay gap and much work to do. Can the minister outline how the government is working to close gender pay gaps?
Great question. Mr. Wong.
Thank you. Well, in February, the Workplace Gender Equality Agency published employer gender pay gaps for the first time. Now, I know Senator Canavan was not particularly supportive of the fact that the gender pay gap data was released, but it is important. It is important for greater transparency, because that is in part what helps reduce the gender pay gap. In every industry in Australia, the median of what a woman is paid is less than the median of what a man is paid, both for base salary and total remuneration. And that is why it is so important that we continue to press for greater transparency to help close the gender pay gap. The data and findings released by the WGEA, the agency, demonstrate that continued action is required to close gender pay gaps and advance gender equality in our workplaces. Key to this is valuing the feminised sectors. That is why we are committed to funding increased wages for aged care workers, for child education and early childhood workers.
The time for just resume your seat. Senator Hughes. You are seriously out of order. Senator Hughes. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister. It is clear the Albanese government is working in multiple areas to create real change to improve women's economic equality. We know that safe and secure jobs are the cornerstone of economic security and independence.
Order.
Can the minister outline how the government's key workplace relation reforms are supporting women at work and driving women's economic equality?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Wong.
Thank you. This government has put gender equality at the heart of the workplace relations system through its reforms.
Order.
This includes adding gender equality and job security into the objectives of the Fair Work Act. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, after all those years of coalition government? Gender equality and job security were never in the objectives of the Act. Prohibiting pay secrecy, implementing Recommendation 28 of Respect at Work to expressly prohibit sexual harassment in the Fair Work Act and provide appropriate dispute resolution avenues. Providing greater access to unpaid leave. Senator Hughes, why do you have so much difficulty with policies that are about supporting women in this country? Why do you get so angry when we do things on this side as a government to improve the position of women? Why would you object to the implementation of the Respect at Work recommendations?
Order on my left. Minister, please continue.
We have provided changes in the workplace system to improve the position of women in paid work, and that is a good thing for women in this country, and it is a good thing for our daughters. And I ask that further questions be.
Thank you.